Two nuclear-armed nations square off. Each side watches the other for any indication of weakness, much like predators searching for susceptible prey. There is no room for error when millions, if not billions, of lives are at stake. As the tension rises, there is only one way to resolve this situation. Let us dance. Here is some background information. This is where Pakistan and India meet. More specifically, the boundary between the Indian village of Atari and the Pakistani town of Wagah. After being governed by the British Empire, India was granted independence in 1947. The land was then divided between the largely Muslim regions of East and West Pakistan. East Pakistan is now known as Bangladesh, and the predominantly Hindu nation of India. That is the core premise, but the reality is far more complex. Tens of millions of refugees fled across borders during the partition, and violence broke out almost immediately. Conflicts over territories such as Kashmir also emerged, and persist to this day. Since then, Pakistan and India have fought several wars and engaged in numerous border skirmishes. Because both countries possess nuclear weapons, their rivalry carries the potential for unprecedented destruction. As you can imagine, the border between the two nations is a hive of both conflict and patriotism. In 1947, the Atari-Wagah border crossing was established. It lies along the historic Grand Trunk Road, a route that has connected regions from Kabul in Afghanistan through Punjab to the Ganges River Valley for centuries, even dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Initially, the border crossing was simple. Sentry boxes were quickly erected, marked by whitewashed stones and a few drums. Flagpoles stood on either side, each painted in national colors. For more than a decade, it remained a straightforward crossing point. Everything changed in 1959. It began with what is known as a retreat. In this context, retreat does not mean fleeing, it refers to the ceremonial lowering of the national flag at the end of the day. Around the world, this is usually a simple ritual involving salutes, attention, and perhaps some music. However, at Wagah, things evolved differently. Indian and Pakistani border guards began observing this daily ritual in 1959, but over time it transformed into a highly choreographed display of military precision, national pride, and theatrical rivalry. Instead of a quiet flag lowering, it became a spectacle. Soldiers on both sides seized the opportunity to showcase strength and superiority. Bugle calls, exaggerated movements, and synchronized marching turned the ceremony into a competitive performance. Today, thousands of spectators gather on both sides, cheering as if attending a sporting event rather than witnessing a military ritual between nuclear-armed rivals. As dusk approaches, the atmosphere becomes electric. On the Pakistani side, crowds chant slogans like Pakistan Zindabad, while Indian spectators respond with cries of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Neither side is willing to be outdone. Then, the ceremony begins. Indian Border Security Force soldiers, dressed in khaki, and Pakistani rangers, clad in black, emerge from their barracks. Their uniforms are immaculate. Boots polished to a mirror shine, medals gleaming, and turbans crowned with dramatic fan-like crests. With exaggerated precision, they march forward. They stomp their feet with force, swing their arms dramatically, and lift their legs impossibly high, often above their heads, before snapping them down with precision. Each movement is designed to outdo their counterpart across the border. The gates are thrown open. Soldiers glare at one another, gesture boldly, and sometimes appear to engage in a silent pose-off, challenging each other without words. Then comes the most delicate moment, lowering the flags. Neither side wants their flag to descend first. As the Pakistani green and white crescent and the Indian tricolour slowly come down, soldiers maintain intense eye contact, ensuring perfect synchronization. Once lowered, the flags are carefully folded and stored. Finally, two senior soldiers approach the gate, exchange a brief handshake, a symbolic gesture of peace, and immediately turn away, their expressions stern and unreadable. The gates slam shut. And just like that, it ends. This ritual is repeated every single day at dusk. What began as a simple military procedure has become a 45-minute spectacle of marching, shouting, posing, and national pride. Some, like Michael Palin, have described it as chauvinism at its most extreme. Others see it as a harmless tradition, an alternative to actual conflict, where rivalry is expressed through performance rather than violence. For many spectators, it feels like a festival. Crowds cheer every movement as if it were points scored in a cricket or football match. Each step, turn, and gesture draws a reaction. However, not everyone views it positively. Critics argue that the ceremony fuels nationalism and deepens hostility between the two nations, making peace more difficult to achieve. Even participants have acknowledged that the display may have become too aggressive. In 2010, both sides agreed to tone down some of the more confrontational gestures, such as aggressive fist movements. Despite this, tensions remain. In 2014, shortly after the ceremony ended, a suicide bombing at the Wagah border killed 60 people in Pakistan and injured over 100. Fortunately, there were no casualties on the Indian side. More recently, in May 2025, the ceremony was temporarily suspended due to heightened tensions following a terrorist attack in India and subsequent military responses. When it resumed, it did so in a much more subdued manner. The usual carnival-like atmosphere was replaced by caution. Yet despite everything, wars, politics, and tragedy, the ceremony continues. As long as India and Pakistan share a border, this extraordinary display of rivalry, discipline, and nationalism will likely endure. The most dramatic border ritual in the world goes on.